Now we turn to some breaking news out of Ukraine. Russia now on the brink of a full-scale invasion. Joe Biden says he has a bold new plan to bring peace to Europe. By the way, this just broke. Apparently, I'm hearing from sources that the U.S. might be meeting and talking with Russia next week. But today, he sent a very competent Vice President Kamala Harris to Germany, apparently to get to the bottom of the root cause of this Russian aggression on Ukraine's border. She has zero foreign policy experience. And after her wildly successful stint as our borders are, I'm sure this is going to go great. Now, one quick question. Why not the president himself? Perhaps another trip abroad is more than he can handle at this stage of his life. Either way, this comes on the heels of a lot of pointless posturing from the Biden administration. OK, great. They took 8,500 troops and put them on a heightened state of preparedness. They sent an additional 3,000 troops to Poland. OK, you know, Joe already said he's not getting into a shooting war. And let me be clear, nor should he. But he said that publicly. If he really wants to squeeze Putin, there is a plan that we should be implementing. And this would work. If you want to prevent the invasion of Ukraine, Joe needs to communicate to Vladimir immediately. Should have done it on day one. That we will out-pump him, we will produce more energy than him, and we will get it to our allies in Western Europe quickly and more cheaply. And by the way, that means oil, that means coal, that means natural gas. Now, of course, unfortunately, Joe is beholden to the climate change cultists in his own party. So I can only say that, you know, that would be the way to cripple Russia's economy, because oil and gas is like their only industry. That's not going to happen. He takes orders from the climate change caucus. Anyway, joining us now, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is with us. Now, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I believe in peace through strength. And why do I think it's a bad idea to be begging and pleading with with Vladimir Putin while he has 150 to 200,000 troops and all his military gear on the border of Ukraine? Why do I see that as a position of weakness on our part? Am I wrong?
No, Sean, you're absolutely right, and thanks for having me on tonight. We've demonstrated weakness with respect to the Russians for the entire, 14 months of this administration. It began by giving them a free pass on a nuclear treaty where we extracted nothing. We let them close down gasoline pipelines in the southeast of the United States. We did nothing. We let them finish Nord Stream 2. We lifted the Trump sanctions on Nord Stream 2. And then we did the worst thing. We shut down American natural gas and crude oil production, giving Vladimir Putin $100 a barrel or $93 a barrel for the crude oil that's produced in Russia. We put his economy on super warp, and we harmed ours and lost jobs here at home. These are all things I think Vladimir Putin saw very quickly. Your point about climate change, the first senior American to visit with Vladimir Putin in the Biden administration was Secretary Kerry. Not the Secretary of State, but the climate czar. I think that sent a real message to Putin, and I think we're seeing the results of that today.
I thought it was humiliating and embarrassing with Joe basically begging Putin to let's meet. There's still time. We can have discussions. Diplomacy can still work, et cetera, et cetera. Why are you begging a guy that's lined up 150,000+ troops to invade a sovereign country? By the way, I'm no fan of Ukraine. When I look at Ukraine, I see pretty much corruption everywhere. And I see the same thing with the hostile regime in Russia under Putin. So I don't think it's America's role. But I do think that he has made a strategic mistake by not supplying our allies in Western Europe, considering we have more natural resources when it comes to gas, oil, and coal than Vladimir Putin. And by abandoning energy independence, he has now pushed our allies right into Putin's arms, hasn't he?
Yeah, Sean, this is an easy one. We have cheap, affordable energy here at home, and we have the capacity to ship it at a really good cost to our European friends and allies. We should be crushing the Russians with this. But, at the same time we're having this conversation with the Russians in Europe, we're sitting on the same side of the table, Sean, the same side of the table with the Russians in Vienna, talking about giving the Iranians the very same capacity to ship their product, their crude oil, their natural gas around the world. This is an enormous sign of weakness. This is a failure of American foreign policy in the fundamental deterrence sense that Reagan had and that we had for our 4 years. I saw this up close and personal. Sergei Lavrov will eat our Secretary of State's lunch if we don't demonstrate American resolve and the capacity and willingness to do the right things for our friends.
What are the odds on these three issues? What are the odds in the next year Putin invades Ukraine? What are the odds that the Iranians get a nuclear weapon? What are the odds that after the Olympics, China will, quote, reunify, meaning take over Taiwan, in your view?
You know, it's a great question. I think in some sense, all three of them are well along in happening. The Russians are already connected in Ukraine. They took Crimea under the previous Democrat administration. They're making a lot of noise in the Donbass today, firing rockets as well. In Iran, we've already essentially lifted sanctions, not by actually lifting them, but by failing to enforce them. And we've allowed Iran to get very close to having not only a nuclear weapon, but a missile program so that they can deliver it. And make no mistake about it, Xi Jinping can see this weakness too. He saw the debacle in Afghanistan. He's going to move closer and closer and continue to try and put a stranglehold on Taiwan. That does not bode well for freedom and democracy on that island.
You're saying things on all three fronts are not looking good. Am I hearing you right?
American weakness always creates risk for our friends and ultimately for American interests as well, Sean.
Yeah. Mike Pompeo, I wish the adults were back in charge. I wish you were there. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.